So anyway, I think in terms of keeping up with what's going on in China, one of the more exciting things to me has been the rapid increase of funding available not only in the old traditional centers of entrepreneurship, Shanghai and Beijing, but really throughout a lot of new regions in China.
Right.
And so I thought today would be a good opportunity to explore just what's going on with two people who are very involved with this process. So sitting closest to me is Dr. Xiao Wang. And Xiao is the chief fire starter and general manager for InnoSpring Silicon Valley. And she's one of the founders of InnoSpring, which really is now a Shanghai-based accelerator and
Science Park Manager and Venture Capital Fund.
Yeah, okay. And Xiao has extensive healthcare and health tech and entrepreneurial expertise. She was a project manager at pharmaceutical tech consulting company Entelos. And she's also working very closely with the China-America Innovation Network, a nonprofit organization that fosters U.S.-China entrepreneurship. And she is a member of the Tsinghua Entrepreneur Executive Club and president of the Tsinghua Alumni Association of Northern California. So we're happy to have Xiao. Next to Xiao is George Chao, who is co-founder of the Silicon Valley Innovation and Entrepreneurship Forum. And he comes from the clean tech and high-tech manufacturing industries. He's assisting companies in finding capital resources and developing business strategies with a focus on those two areas, high-tech and manufacturing. He was with the Green Tech Power Group previously, which is developing utility-scale solar technologies. He's also worked closely with UC Berkeley and Lawrence Berkeley National Labs, spent 6 years as an IC design engineer at LBL, and is vice president of the Berkeley Chinese Alumni Association, International Association. So we're delighted to have both of our panelists with us. Each panelist is going to give some comments. We'll talk a little bit to get discussion going, and then we'll open it up to audience Q&A. So, George, if you'll go first, that's great.
Sure. Thank you, Richard, for the introduction. So, again, my name is George Chao. I'm the co-founder of the Silicon Valley Innovation Entrepreneurial Forum. Yeah, so I want to thank everybody for coming. I know it's definitely almost final time, so you guys are getting busy for your finals, exam, and also that. And then, and also, so how many of you actually have started your own company? Okay, just a few. How many of you plan to start your company after this class? Okay, great. Okay, that's good. Yeah. And how many of you actually want to focus more on Asia? Raise your hand. Okay. Since you guys come to this kind of event, so I was assuming you guys might be interested a lot in Asia. So so again, I graduated from the school on the other side of the bay, and then so actually I remember sitting in this kind of classroom. And then, actually, I started ACES Berkeley, actually, with the ACES here. Yeah. So how many of you actually know ACES? Okay, good. Yeah, it's the Asia Pacific Student Entrepreneurs Society group. So I think also Richard is kind of like the advisor. Yeah, so I've been kind of like, ACES kind of like inspired my entrepreneurship. And then, so after I graduated from Berkeley, I went to Lawrence Berkeley National Lab. And then Stephen Chu, your I think physics head actually went to Berkeley lab and become the director. And then so he kind of mentored a few of us. And after that, I started my own solar company. And then also I started this Silicon Valley Innovation Entrepreneurial Forum in 2011. So that time we see, there are a lot of collaboration between US and China. And then so we started this group kind of like to have, more and more collaboration between US and China, both company-wise and also politics-wise. So maybe next step. So here, for the past 7 years. So our first year we have Bill Clinton came to our events, and then like Al Gore, and then Ashton Kutcher and Steve Wozniak. We have people from both political and also many successful CEOs, entrepreneurs come to our events, and also many of the Chinese company like Xiaomi, the CEO Lei Jun, and also Stephen Chu, Bill Gross from the Ideal Lab. Many people came to our event kind of like to share more, on how can U.S. and China kind of like collaborate more together, because we believe, kind of like in a room where you can put, both the private sector and also government and also a lot of investors together, you can make this work better. So maybe next slide. And also we have this kind of like, we call like the SVIEF startup contest. Like it's kind of like our US SVIEF star. So we actually have many companies submit, to our contest. So every year, usually end of September, we have this contest at the Shanghai Convention Center. Usually we usually get anywhere between 100 to 150 companies submit to us, and then we will probably select down to 20, and then we will have this contest at the convention center. And also, so the one on the left is our 2015, our fifth startup contest, and then the one on the right is our last year's. And also we gave like the top 30 innovation award, at our convention. And then the one on the left bottom is actually just happened recently. The Chinese Ministry of Science actually came to us. They want us to host this InnoStars competition for them. So actually, they have 3 locations. They have one in Houston, and then one in here, and then one after here is Boston. So they do these 3 cities roadshow, and they go to China. And they go to like Hangzhou, Beijing, and then Shanghai, and also Shenzhen, few cities to do that. So we do all of these kind of competitions now to help many of the entrepreneurs here to connect back to China. So next. And so here are just few of the partners we have here, and also as you can see some like the Star X, and also definitely many of the Berkeley launch, and also Skydeck, and then also many of the labs actually. So many of them came to us to become the judge, and also they also refer their startups go to our competition to kind of like to do that. So next. And so today, our kind of like we want to talk about few cities. So we kind of picked a few cities. So the first one is Shenzhen. So Shenzhen, actually the Shenzhen government came to us. So last year they actually host. I think they are the first one actually ever kind of like they did a big contest. They actually have this contest in 6 continents. So like US, we kind of host their US competition site, and then they have Japan at Tokyo, and they have Israel, and then they have Australia, and they have Europe at Germany, and also they have in China. So basically each region, they will pick 10 or 20 companies, actually 10 companies, and fly everybody back to Shenzhen. And in the top 60, they will pick the top 3. And they actually gave you cash, no string attached. You don't need to move there. You don't have to give them equity. They basically just gave you free money if you won the contest. And then also definitely, if you decide to locate there, of course, they have office, they can give you office space. They also have both public and private ventures that they can invest into you. So this is our 2nd year actually working with them. They actually make it like a TV show. So actually, so this year we had we had our Shenzhen competition March 19th. Actually,
that's right.
Chao was there, and then so we had some winners fly there. I think one of them is a Stanford company. They are the 3D ceramic company. So actually, they went back, and then actually they won one of the awards. So this is kind of like the on April 14th, they actually have the competition in Shenzhen. So those are the judges. Actually, one of them is actually, I don't know if you guys see, is in the middle is George Smoot. He's actually a Nobel Prize winner out of Lawrence Berkeley National Lab. He won the Nobel Prize 2016, and so he in physics. So he kind of like judge and all that. And then so on the bottom left, it's kind of like all the winners who actually won, kind of like who went to the final contest. And then on the right bottom is actually they met with in the middle. If you see it, they met with the mayor of Shenzhen. So they kind of like do this, trying to see trying to get the best talents from all over the world, not just the U.S. but everywhere all over the world to Shenzhen, so they can kind of like have the best, because Shenzhen, they call themselves kind of the Silicon Valley of China. So like they want more companies to go there and then to partner with them. And even if you are hardware or anything, like Shenzhen is big for hardware, and they would like to help you join venture with many other companies in China and do that. So Shenzhen is definitely famous for that. And then so next slide. And then at the beginning of this month, so from May 10th to 12th, so we also have our Chengdu event. So this is our 2nd year doing the Chengdu event. So we have about 10,000 people there. And then as you can see, it's part of their global innovation entrepreneurial forum also. And then so we fly in many of the U.S. Companies, also a lot of also Fraser, he's also like another Nobel Prize winner, and also Jack McCauley, he's the co-founder of Oculus, and then and also I think a few of the Berkeley and Stanford professors there kind of talk about entrepreneurship. So they want to kind of inspire more on entrepreneurship and also help companies there. So also if you can see on the actually on the right hand side on the top, so we actually fly in about 90 startups companies. So they can pitch at the events. Also, we gave them like one-on-one matching, so they can meet many of the investors there, and also a lot of the companies who want to invest into them. So that's from the Dynotech. So he's actually pitching. So basically, we select 10 or 15 people to actually they can pitch at the conference, so they can have many of the investors. I think our goal is really to bring companies here to there. We say you should start your company here. You can still stay here, but you want to also look into China to see if you can find any financing or any strategic partners. We think you can do parallel on this. You don't have to just stick in the U.S. and also do that. You can do both ways. So actually, so that's that. And then also, as you can see on the bottom left, so that's kind of like our expo. Like we brought about 90 companies there. They all showcase their drones, robotics, AIs, and also all their kind of like their toys that they come up with the companies with, so they can actually showcase all their companies there. And then I think there are like 10,000 people there at actually, if you look at the middle, actually it's the governor of Sichuan province, Yi Li. So like he actually is showcasing the wearables. So like the guy with the glasses, his name is Steve May. So he's kind of like the father of wearables. So he actually came up with his own wearable device. So he was showing Yi Li on that. And then so on the right hand side, just the company is actually there kind of like to showcase different things. So we want you to actually able to showcase all the things that you have here. Like we want you can come with us and actually go to like showcase your products with your roadmap and all that with many of the companies in China. So that's kind of like the goal for our event. Maybe next. Yeah, and then also the other one is Xi'an. Actually Chengdu. So I don't know if I talked with many of the speakers and also startup companies who went. Actually, so they were saying that they think Chengdu is a really new city with all the new infrastructures and with all the kind of like the new high-tech stuff. They really enjoyed it. Actually, a lot of the startup companies founders told me actually they won't mind actually stay there and also live there for a year or two. Because they enjoy the city. They think the infrastructure there is pretty new, and then with all the new buildings and also all the new technology they have there, so they really enjoyed it. And then the other city is Xi'an. So Xi'an, as we know, is kind of like a historical, kind of like a city, right? So many like the terracotta warriors, the soldiers. So the Xi'an government, they know they have all the history, all the tourism, right? So they kind of want to think about what they should do with their city, right? And so they see all the tourism that they have here, so they think definitely like wearables or anything related to tourism can help their city, especially with the new One Belt One Road, right? It started at Xi'an, so they have been looking at a few different things and what they can do with all the new technology that they can have. So we also hosted the event there, talking about like deep learning and then innovation. And also many of the company also pitch there, kind of like they want to focus on both AR, VR, and also anything related to kind of like the travel and also a lot of the kind of like the finance, because those are the areas that like fintech, because those are the areas, at least that's the government told us, hey, those are the areas they're looking at. Especially we were at the new technology development center place, so like that's kind of like their new industry center on all that. So what I see actually, so for I think different city, I think definitely in China, like Shenzhen is definitely if you want to go for all the hardwares and also all those, I think they are definitely innovation. They are definitely having a lot of those, because I think they are also the first mover actually come to Silicon Valley, having their own different incubators here, and also many of the actually they have several incubators here. Actually, they want to link between both US and China. and also Chengdu is, as we mentioned, they are a pretty big city in China, and then they are definitely on the west, and then they definitely want to enroll more people there, and then many of the Fortune 500 companies are there, and then they are also looking for companies where they can partner up with and also do more. So that's definitely the area that they are interested in. And then Xi'an, again, as we talked, like it's a historical city with all the all the history and all that. So if anybody interested more about history and also all that, that can be a great city to live in, where you can do both business and also tour all the city with all the historic stuff. So these are kind of like the few areas that we focus on, yeah.
So George, is this your final slide? Yeah. Okay. So while I'm going to set up for Xiao's slides, can I ask you a follow-up?
Sure.
Is this central government money that goes to the cities for them to develop the way that they want to? I mean, bringing large numbers of startup companies from Silicon Valley over is a pretty expensive thing, right?
Right.
So do you know if it's central money, or is it money that's really from the province and staying in the province, or?
I think it's from the province. I don't know where they got the money from the central.
But each one of them is taking a different angle on entrepreneurship.
Exactly, yeah. So they basically want us to bring both kind of like the speakers and also many of the U.S. companies there, and also many of the U.S. startup companies where they can come in and actually experience how the cities look like, and also how the entrepreneurship ecosystem is like. And so that's what we have seen most of the cities, yeah.
Okay.
And each one of them actually contact us, like all differently, right? They all like want to see how each city can use their own strengths to kind of like to get the right kind of like the entrepreneurs.
Yeah. Okay. So it's really, there's a sense of competition between the cities.
Yeah,
they feel like they're in competition with each other.
Yeah, I think in China there's always competition.
Yeah, okay,
for the
okay.
province, yeah.
So let's, why don't you have a seat,
Okay.
and Xiao, I think we're ready for your comments.
Okay. Hi. Can anyone hear me okay? Well, thanks, Richard, first of all, for inviting me. I think last time I spoke at the campus was a couple years ago.
Yeah, it was. We were talking about new trends and acceleration then.
Yeah. Our business model has evolved so much, and I'm glad that George, my friend over here, has spoken about a lot of different options in China, and our business is actually really go deep and figuring out what are the differences between all of the cities and why these things matter to you, because we're all here from the valley, and I think the issue isn't lack of choices. The issue is having a lot of options, but how do you know which one fits for you? I think that's what's really interesting. So I'm going to start with telling our story of where we started and what we are, who we are today, and then slowly lead into our business model that could perhaps help you sort out some of that questions. Let's get started. So I want to start with this slide because I always wanted to start with a slide that talk about mega trend. I want to know, this slide basically tells stories of the fact that half of the largest internet companies that is in history comes from China that started with no connection to Silicon Valley. And that might not be news to you because I've seen a lot of Asian faces in the audience, but this is probably not something that everyone in the US know of. And if you think about and dig into the stories of why half of them started and they were able to make it, some of them are actually bigger than their counterparts in the US, and how did they make it to today? And there's a lot of interesting stories, and a lot of that is definitely related to the booming technology hotspot in China and the support and advantages they were able to get from China. So that would be an interesting thought, but I'll come back to the slide later. So essentially what we're trying to say is China itself is a magical place. I mean, our headquarters is in Shanghai. We are looking at the Pearl Tower. Anyone knows the Pearl Tower, the signature place in Shanghai? We are across the river from that. You would consider it's one of the hotspots in Shanghai because we're paying expensive rent. But we're at a 20-story building. We're sitting at the 11th floor. And right 5 minutes walk from our office, I can lead you to one of the most expensive restaurants in Shanghai. You would love it. You think Shanghai would be, the best place ever. You have a great service, great experience. But I can also spend another 3 minutes across the street and show you something that is a terrible experience that you will hate it and will never go back to China again. So this is really how complicated China can be. Next door to our building, that is a small section of rural old buildings that were teared down 50%, but not completely teared down. It's been around because of the messy lawsuit the government had with the resident over there that has been there for 50 years. You see something that you probably see, you wouldn't imagine to see in downtown Shanghai. So China is really complicated to figure it out, and I think the mission of our company is help you guys to navigate it is a little bit easier. And this is where we started. But I just want to give you a really big trend here. So China today has a lot of resources for startups. So we're finally evolving from a state-owned government dictated economy to today we're building and promoting an open innovation system. So the government has committed $300 billion US dollars in the next 10 years dedicated into investing in startups. I think this amount of infrastructure is what we haven't seen anywhere on the planet. This is what we call 双创, 大众创业,万众创新. It's something that the government started promoting only 2 years ago actually. And there are already close to 3,000 incubators nationwide in China, and almost like Starbucks. And this is what I'm trying to say. If you consider China, the problem is you have a lot of options. And what's challenging is, how do you figure out who to work with? That's always going to be challenging. Okay. But the reason why we're all talking about China, I think last time I was there, I start with a slide saying, China is the only interesting story we're talking about right now that's different. I remember sitting at conferences of VCs that sit on stage. The only interesting thing that they talk about is, Chinese economy is slowing down, China is different, and there's always interesting story that come out of that. But the growth rate that American companies was finally achieving, like Uber did, was something that blew their mind even today. Even with everything we talk about and think about China, we still underestimate how big China market can be. So I have a friend who sits on the board of Uber. What they've achieved in 2 years in terms of the red growth curve is fundamentally unheard of compared to anywhere else. So for a long time, for a decade, companies are struggling with the idea of thinking that none of the American companies would ever capture Chinese market in value. This is what a lot of giants have tried. But when Uber tried it again, without help, they didn't do a joint venture, they didn't try to collaborate locally to start, they did it themselves independently. In 2 years, they invested $1 billion. They're losing money everywhere, but after they were merged with Didi, their stake today is still worth $7 billion. That is at least 3x gain in 2 years, in big numbers. It's not something you can easily get anywhere. So still, this is why Chinese market is still magical. There's still a lot of potential value, but the problem is who can win there. And even the big companies like Google had tried and failed. So that's really interesting. But before I go into, next one please, more details, I also want to show this. This is something my team member had taught me, where I'm looking at this chart. I found it on the internet. This one shows the amount of patent that's being filed in different countries. As you look at the US in blue versus China, look at how much of the number of patent has grown from China in recent years. It is growing exponentially. So the image of China, where China is just copying somebody else's technology is completely changing. It's changing under our radar. It's changing even without me knowing. I only find out about this a few months ago. And Chinese company is slowly being innovative. And I think that's why there's a lot of people and a lot of company getting scared. But the more Chinese companies are changing, the more I think we should seriously thinking about the question and the way to go to China. Next one. So this is also something interesting I want to talk about. So when you talk about Chinese GDP's economy, everybody knows it's a big number, right? But this is an interesting question. What shares of Chinese gross industry output do you think come from state-owned enterprises? Can anybody take a guess? How much of the Chinese GDP comes from the state-owned enterprises? How much is coming from private? Can anyone take a guess?
30%.
What is it?
30.
30?
30.
Okay.
30% for the SOEs or for the
Private.
private?
Okay. Somebody else take a guess.
I'd go with 50-50.
50-50, okay. This is not my research. This is this guy's research. This is in this book, Markets Over Mile, the Rise of Private Business in China. I haven't read it, so anyone interested can go, but I can tell you the answer. The answer is the opposite of what you just said. Only 25% to 30% is state-owned, which blew my mind. I cannot make this out 5 years ago, but it's true. It's somebody else's research. That means China is restructuring itself, and it's happening in an insane rate. Next one. So everybody is talking about Chinese economy slowing down. I think our current target is, 5 to 6%. That's what we want to get down to. But with the huge problem with roaring cost and problem with not able to sustain growth in the traditional industry sector, like construction, like power, like manufacturing, China is facing a critical time of restructuring in their industry output from traditional industry to technology. And even with slowdown, target of growth of 5.5% every year, we're still looking at about 3 to 5 trillion in market size that we need to achieve in technology sector alone. And that is a huge amount of this huge number. So it's still got a lot of opportunity there. So, and most of that is in the private sector. So it's actually a good market and primed to be disrupted for our innovation technologies. Okay, so now I want to talk about what we do and who we are. So I think last time I visited the campus, I was talking about our local business, the Silicon Valley branch. So we started with building the first US-China technology incubator. And we started in 2011. And we're one of the first ones that actually shout out the US-China flag and trying to encourage people to think about China. And I still remember when I joined a company in 2012, when we go out and talk to founders, we talked to a lot of people and we were marketing China's strategic directions. We were offering our technique and expertise in the China market. Most of the response I got were from people who rolled their eyes and saying, we're not going to think about China in 5 to 10 years. We'll probably think about it when we raise Series D money. That is probably 60% of people would say to me. But after Alibaba went IPO in 2013, China was sort of reintroduced to US, and things just flipped. And now we're hearing people talking about starting a business here dedicated for China. And it hasn't been that long. So we decided that we were on something that was real business. Even though at the time we had a small incubator and we thought we were going to become a Y Combinator, and turned out we would never become Y Combinator. We have to become something that we focus on the US-China growth. So that's why we also changed ourselves. Okay. Next one. Here's where we are today. So we decided to really incorporate ourselves as a real cross-border platform. And today, we have 9 co-founders. I've got one of my co-founders right there, Michael. He doesn't visit me that often because he was working really hard over there. And then we have today 80 employees, and because we've been in the industry of helping startups to break into complicated technology ecosystem for the last 15 years. Initially for Tsinghua, now we become independent. And today, we already serve 4 years helping startups across 3 main industries that we focus on: smart systems, life sciences, and smart construction. And we expand with operation in 3 countries, with 2 offices in the US, 5 offices in China, and 1 that we're setting it up in Germany. And we run across 4 VC funds and 6 co-working locations. And here's what we have achieved. I think in short of 3.5 years. We were able to achieve 5 IPOs through our past connections of serving them. And today serving only 300 companies, but together they're worth already $4 billion. That's not something we thought we could achieve. Is actually working a lot faster than we think it could. And there's a reason for that. Next one. I thought it would be interesting to compare us with Y Combinator because when we started, I was obsessed with actually trying to figure out how we could draw an analogy there. Not certainly much, much smaller in scale and shorter in years of operation, but I think we've done okay.
The 5 IPOs, are they here or are they in China?
They're all in China right now.
Okay, okay.
Okay, here's our operations. I want to show this map not just to show where we are in operation, but also show you why we picked the Shanghai area strategically. Because when Richard told me about today's subject was talking about innovation hotspot other than Beijing and Shanghai, that would make it really interesting. And I'm glad that George has picked a lot of different cities that you could be going into. But we picked 2 cities. One is Kunshan, one is Nantong. How many of you have heard of these 2 cities? Oh, there are actually people who heard of that. Okay, good. Probably a few. Okay, I want to tell you some stories and some work we've done in these 2 cities. And the reason for that is next slide. Because when we think about this, it's really interesting to see what's behind a technology hotspot. How many of you thinking that technology hotspot is by design? That it started first, then it helps great company to spin out of there? Or how many of you thinking that it started probably on its own and just scale from there? Really like thinking about this book. How did things start from 0 to 1? How did things start from 0 to 1? Did Beijing tech community just start on its own, or something else magical happened? I mean, I don't have an answer for that. We are trying to do, our business is actually from 0 to 1. Our business is to figure out how to do a tech spot and entrepreneurship ecosystem in a scalable way. The scalable approach to quickly leapfrog in certain industries where everybody we work with, every startup we serve can grow much faster with us instead of becoming independent. That is the core of our business. Next, I want to tell you one of the story of Kunshan. Kunshan is actually very close to Shanghai. It's 18 minutes by train right now, and an hour by driving. It's 40 minutes from the Pudong airport. But you probably haven't heard of that. Kunshan only got 1.6 million people, and it's got 300 billion RMB in GDP. It's the richest non-first-year city in China. It's something that's been ignored, but I want to tell you what we did in Kunshan in the last 8 years. So, next slide. In 2007, that's when we decided to start a life science park there. Why is that? Close to Shanghai, people are educated, it's got a lot of space for lab work, and it's close to universities around Shanghai and Suzhou and Nanjing. It's a really good location. But in 2007, when we started, there's 0 life science there. And what's happening today, after 10 years in, we only have 50 companies, but together we have 10 candidate drugs in clinical trials. They're all original science. 6 of them are in phase 3. 4 out of the 6 are class 1.1 drugs. How many of you knows what the class 1.1 means? Class 1.1 means it's original research that doesn't exist anywhere else on the planet. It's original, it's new, it's from China. That alone, many people don't believe that actually happened. When I had a conversation with a guy who runs the UCSF Innovation Center, I told him we have a life science park. He looked at me, he said, oh yeah, you guys just do medical device and copycats. He said it to my face. I told him I have 4 class 1.1 in phase 3. He said, now? I said, now. He then took his hat off and said, you have taught me something I don't know about China and surprised me. Thank you. We have 4 class 1 and 1 in phase 3. I can tell you what it means. In China, in the last 30 years, people have been developing the healthcare and life science industry. How many of class 1.1 drugs that was approved do you think that exist in China? How many do you think that exist?
Okay, first of all, define class 1.1.
Class 1 is original candidate drugs, original science that's never been commercialized anywhere. We're the first. That's what it's called.
Okay. And you know, clinical trials, phase 1 is a few dozen people, phase 2 is several hundred people, phase 3 is in the tens of thousands of people who are attempting, you know, the drug is being tested. So
yeah, phase 3, the average cost for R&D is $200 million.
$200 million US, that's right.
Yeah.
Yeah, so usually success in phase 2 is about the time that the startup company here gets bought by Roche or Pfizer or one of the other giants, right? Okay, just for that background.
Just that basis background.
Yeah.
There's only one. Given all that dollars spent in China, probably trillions of dollars spent in the entire industry, there's one that being approved, and the company is worth 15 billion with one. We have 4 in phase 3. It's something that's unimaginable that we created in China. How do we do that? It's really, I was really fascinated because every time I tell a story, people who are within the life science industry always want to know it's impossible, but it is possible. Okay, next one. So I want to tell you how do we do it. We don't believe in supporting startup one by one. If you think about how do we solve a way to build a system that really support a lot of companies with solving their commonly seen challenges is the key to scale and innovation systems. And this is an example of us helping this technology. There's only one vertical in life science called RNAi technology. It's technology that was discovered about 15 years ago. The guy who originated and found it was awarded a Nobel Prize. So we have built an open innovation system, something that you heard a lot in Silicon Valley, where you enable corporations, research labs, and public platform. This is color coding, blue, green, and gray. And enable all of them work there. These are the best of best resources that is available in country or in the world that we help them actually bring them here all together that supports fundamental research all the way to new drug development. So systematically, they solve every company's pain point. That's what we've done in Kunshan. That's the foundation of driving results. We spent 10% of money investing in this compared with our actually competition in Shanghai, Zhangjiang, and Suzhou. We have this and they have none. So that's the difference. So this is just a way, next one, thank you. So basically we were thinking about this from an outside in. When we look at this, we look at a systems problem. How do you just help with 100 companies? Because the odds of success in life science is 5 to 10%. How do you beat other people? Everybody is as smart. You can't be smarter. You probably can only be smarter with somebody else if there's really huge difference there. It's really hard. So the only way to beat everybody else and to increase your odds of success is having this way to solve knowledge, technology, and market innovation altogether. So that's basically what we've done in the life science industry. Next, I want to show you, next slide. Oh, I forgot. So this is something that I think it's one of the interesting ideas that we've done last year that speaks to how we're going to collaborate with you guys. So Quark Pharmaceuticals is a Bay Area-based pharmaceutical company. And 2 years ago, we decided to enter into a joint venture with them, with one of our company that we invested in China called Reibo. It's a pharmaceutical company. They both spend a lot of R&D dollars. Reibo at the time have spent about $100 million, and then Quark spent about $300 million in the US. And they both want global market, but they both constrained with resources, time, and money to actually enter into their respective counterparts. So the way we work is we did a joint venture to put compounds all together into one company, and we share market, and we were able to push one of the Quark Pharmaceuticals candidate drugs from preclinical to phase 3 in a year and a half. And a year and a half of time is 20x of company's valuation. So it was a really innovative way to help Bay Area companies to succeed. This is like a good way to actually work with Bay Area companies. Next. So next I want to tell you another story about this new city called Nantong. As you notice that we don't really pick Beijing and Shanghai. That is because we pick in areas where we think there's still empty room for us to play in. But the way we do it is always focused on vertical integration of an industry. So, because we realize that when founders think about going into China, they don't think about having too many options. They think about, what do I want the most? I go to China for commercial value, don't we? So, because China is a big market, I have technology, I think I can have customers. What I think about is not because this city has, probably having good food is important, but mostly important is I could easily I can find people, I can find customers, and hopefully I can do that as cheap as possible. So this is the city we pick as Nantong. It's got 100 billion construction market size. That's 40% of what you can have in China. It's a very unique place. It's a crown jewel that's been missing, but nobody really is working there. And it's an hour away from Shanghai. So we decided to do something really innovative. Next slide. Everybody's talking about Internet of Things, but without existing market value, Internet of Things really won't materialize. So we decided to do a constructed smart city science park in Nantong that layer on a huge 100 billion construction market. There are buyers of technology. They're just there. They have cash. They're too traditional. They have no idea how software works. We decided to help them to visualize an intelligent, smart, cheap, greener building an entire ecosystem and help them commercialize and integrate with technology. So these technology can come to us and talk to 40% of all construction buyers anywhere in China. So this is what we've done. Actually, Michael is he's in charge of this. So anybody interested? Next one. Anyway, so this is the ecosystem we built, all the way from understanding what founders want, from ideation, from building prototypes, for having actual product that works to showcase to their customers, from running business plan contests, mentorship, all the way of funding, and talking to all of the local 68 industry alliances that are buyers. So this is the ecosystem. Next. This is some of the biggest names in the construction industry in Nantong, and they're there. They're part of the system that we have. So it's just a way that we can help really scale from 0 to 1 how an industry and technology hotspot would ever work. Mm-hmm. So that's pretty much close to the end. Okay,
good. So why don't George come on back up? Let's talk for a little bit. So, Xiao, one thing that I kind of got lost in your presentation, if I'm a startup company here in Silicon Valley, why would I call InnoSpring?
If you're in the industry that we already have.
Okay. And so in that regard, I would be interested in getting into China.
Yeah, you'd be interested in go to China. You are in an industry of smart systems. Yeah. Manufacturing, construction, smart city, and life sciences. Okay. We are the top notch in China. We can't say in other industries, we will be competitive, but in those three,
so,
we are.
you know, with Y Combinator, you put in your proposal and you pitch and so forth, and maybe you get in, right? But what you're doing is really networked throughout China and is a much different kind of engagement, right?
Yes. We're
Okay.
trying to shortcut the business value chain and offer that to founders, entrepreneurs, because we realize we can't compete with Y Combinator here, but we can compete with all that and our connections combined.
Okay, so same thing, George, when a company would come to you is they would be interested in some of the programs that you're doing, some of the travel to China that you're organizing. Why does a company here, a startup company here, come to?
Yeah, so basically, I think for us, so we have, relationship with the Chengdu government, also Shenzhen, also the Xi'an government. So basically, they specifically told us, hey, these are the industry that we're interested, like new material, like healthcare, and then advanced manufacturing, those areas. So basically, we engage with them on that. Yeah.
Okay, so what kind of mistakes are Silicon Valley startup companies making when they think about China? George, you first.
I think for them, they think, they just go with us, go there, and then they can start really well in there. But in China, usually when you go there, you get to know each other, and then you get to know how to do business in China and all that. You learn that as you go, and then so that's actually we tell them, it takes time to develop a relationship, and also we can help you facilitate all the with all the government relationship and all that. But still, at the end of the day, it takes some time to.
Takes time.
Exactly.
Yeah. Okay. Xiao?
I think the biggest mistake are either people think China is impossible to them, and there's no reason to think about it. I think that's one of the biggest mistakes. The other one is thinking China is just about cheap funding, or dumb funding, quote unquote.
Yeah, it used to be cheap labor, now it's cheap funding, right?
Yeah.
But, yeah, okay. And I think that what you've both presented, though, is sort of lightning difference in regard to the kind of networking and opportunities that you can bring to people, right?
Yeah.
And it really isn't just about Shanghai and Beijing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think the market is big, and also every province has their emphasis on different things. Also, I think the market is too big. Like you can have many of us, like many of the InnoSprings, many of the SVIEF. They are a huge pie to kind of to fill.
It's really for if you have a decision to make. Do you want to be a small fish in the ocean or a big fish in a pond?
Okay. What about IP? So if a company goes to Chengdu or goes to Xi'an, is there an expectation that they will provide IP to a local partner there, or what?
So I think again, as you say, like right now in China, IP go up a lot also. So China also right now will want to focus more on that, and also I think they should definitely find like a U.S. partners who has both U.S. and China side. So that's how they can protect their IP on that.
Okay, Xiao, what would you say?
It really depends on if this is hard IP or soft IP. So if you talk about hard IP, the real technology, the cost of actually infringing on somebody else's IP is really big right now in China. I wouldn't recommend anybody doing it. Even Chinese companies are very careful, unless you don't want to become big.
Yeah.
There are some soft IPs that are questionable. Things are like business models, things are like form factor. That's really hard to protect even in the US, so I wouldn't even say China is unique, a different place.
So what stage was Quark at when they started considering this?
They raised about $150 million.
Okay, so they were already in phase 2.
They have a lot of drugs in phase 3.
Okay, but
Yeah.
at the time, I'm going back in history.
Oh, 2 years they have two in phase 3.
Right, and so you were able to bring them extra leverage from SoftBank.
Yeah, they put in most of the funding. We didn't own most part. We own only a small.
But you were kind of a catalyst to help make that happen, right?
Yes.
So what were the things that Quark said that were, because they could have taken funding from somewhere else, right? They could have gone a traditional route here, raised another $300 million from some PE fund, and or been bought at that point?
It's not the money that matters. It's really about how do we, because Quark knows, as everybody knows, they need partner, but how do they know they have one chance? And how do they know who to work with that they could be successful? The way they did it is they talked to every pharmaceutical there is in China. They just asked them a simple question. Have you ever done a successful original class 1 drug, taken it from preclinical to phase 3? Have you done it?
But why
simple
were they
question.
even spending the time talking to China?
Oh, they want Chinese market.
Okay.
Because the Chinese pharma market is growing much faster than US because we started, the foundation was much, much lower.
Okay, great. Let's open the floor. Go ahead.
China is run by the Chinese Communist Party. And I've noticed over the years in various companies that I've looked at that they either have a party committee set up in them or they're forced to have a party committee set up in them. So at what point, Dr. Wang, do your companies have to set up a party committee? And in fact, are you a member of the Chinese Communist Party?
It's a really good question, but I'm a little confused with that question. First of all, I'm not a part of Chinese Communist Party. Actually, I think I'm not good enough to be part of it. Second, I don't think you really need a Communist Party committee. I haven't heard any company actually absolutely need that.
I can comment on this a little bit. No, let me comment if you would. Okay.
Xi Jinping is all about control, and it's controlled by the Chinese Communist Party. It's a fact of life.
Let me comment.
Sure.
I was in the back of a taxi with a gifted student from one of the big universities in China. And I asked the student, are you going to join the party? And the student said, it really depends on my job. If I go to work in the government, I probably will. Because you have to be in like the top 5% of your graduating class even to get in, right? And if I join the government, I probably will. But if I go out and do a business thing, probably not. And it was remarkably practical kind of attitude in terms of what's the party really going to do for me. Yes, the party has almost a shadow organizational structure along with the regular city government structure and so on and so forth. So that you do have a lot of people who have dual positions in both and so forth. But I think that, first of all, if you're a foreign company going into China, you develop the local expertise that will solve that problem for you. Nobody goes into China independently without having some sort of a local partner. And the issue of going in, you do it because you want access to that market. You also want the kind of connections that they can help bring to you in rest of world markets. Increasingly, partnering with China is not about the China market, it's about partnering in Africa and Myanmar and the rest of the world. So I think that this is one where, yeah, it's a different system. Officially, I don't want to take a stand. I have my own personal preferences that we can talk about afterward. But basically, if you look at it as a problem, there are solutions, and you find the people who have the solutions, and you make sure that you understand what you're getting into. That's the whole point. And that's exactly why we're trying to do these programs. Right. George, would you have anything to say? Because with all these things from the cities, sure, the party's all over this, right?
Yeah, so for me, I'm from Taiwan, but my business partner, she's the one who actually deals with all the Chinese government and all that, so I don't really know maybe
yeah,
she should know better.
Okay, so you're from Taiwan.
Yeah, I'm from Taiwan. So.
Yeah, okay. All right.
I think the one thing I want to add to is we really focus on businesses that create real value. That's the whole point of doing this, is to not think about how complicated the environment would be, is having a structure that enables you as a founder to focus on value generating product. That's really primarily why we did this in the first place.
We can debate it later, but I've been doing business in China for 40 years, and I've got a slightly more jaded view on all of this.
Okay. That's we'll come back to it. Ed?
In the past, the Chinese GDP has really been exporter outwardly looking. And you've talked in your remarks, both of you talked about how you're looking for global markets. Okay. What I'm wondering about is the more recent stories that have come out of China is the transition China would like to make from an export-driven economy, which is more like the Germany, Japan, Korea model, to the US model, which is consumer-driven internally.
Yes.
Right? So can you kind of comment on that and talk about, in your pitch, it seems like you're trying to pitch Chinese big pharma, which would supply the world. But that's still kind of the old model of the export, as opposed to the more self-sufficient one that's not as reliant on the economic health of the people you're exporting to.
You want to?
Yeah. So I mean, what I see is basically, they want to leverage all the technology that, the US and also all that definitely help internally. And also with the new, the One Belt One Road, so they can actually do that, to, the rest of the Asia and also all that. So with that, they can actually, export to other countries as well. Because as the technology advances, I think they see Africa and also all the other, countries where they can help, with all this technology that we have. And definitely internally, they will consume more and also all that.
I just want to add to that. China is very big. I think the general consensus is we all believe that there's a huge rising domestic demand. That would be initial support, because you won't be considering actually going global if you're not really successful in China. But what happens really is China is very competitive. Companies who are really good at making money, already becoming successful in China, are really good at expanding out to probably non-US, non-Europe territory. Because when they go out, they find out it's open territory. It's much simpler to go there. So it's just something that is straightforward. When you have a good battleground in China, you want to actually capture more market out there.
Okay. I saw your hand. And I'll lift you first and then Chinka, okay?
Okay, thank you. AI is a sector that a lot of people are focusing these days, and apparently China is getting very serious about investing in AI, and a lot of money is going into that sector. A friend of mine working at IBM recently got a new job focusing on open AI. And I'm curious how China views open AI. So he's all about open innovation in AI. How does China view that? And are you buying into open AI, or is it more, they'll do it internally and not necessarily pursue open innovation in a sector that they are very serious about? And so what do you see happening on that front?
Yeah, so I think right now, everything you put on AI, everybody's interested now, like all the topics are on AI. Just like I think last year or a year, like 2 years ago, it's AR, VR, all the VR, like when you go to CES, everybody's doing VR. And now look at it, like almost all the company, nobody, not too many companies are doing VR now, right? So we see AI now is kind of like the next big, thing that they were talking about. But you want to see how, almost everybody walk on the street, everybody's put an AI on it, but you don't know whether they are really doing AI or not, right? But so we'll have to see how this thing turn out. I mean, of course, I think everybody will focus on trying to do AI as much as possible. I think open AI help innovation, all that. I think definitely many of the Chinese companies we talk to, they want to do more on that. But we'll see how long this lasts.
That's an interesting question. I just want to add to what George just said. So if you go read Tencent's history, 5 years ago, actually 8 years ago, Tencent and Baidu and had this huge head-to-head competition. But at the time, they were both really, really close. And Alibaba as well. So, and then Pony Ma, who is the founder of Tencent at the time, felt the pain of becoming really restricted and private and closed out. then you're facing direct combat from everybody else that's not part of your system. So he had decided to pivot Tencent into a semi-open platform. That's when they started investing outside of their companies. They started supporting developers. They started build APIs. WeChat has been really open, relatively speaking, and that started there. So they changed their mindset and they built a kingdom periphery to Tencent business, and they were able to explore WeChat, explore finance, explore payment, and that becomes Tencent today, which is much bigger than everybody else. So I actually like open system. It's probably take time to be extremely open, but I think it's a way that you build defense system outside of your main business.
If I can comment briefly, part of this is industry evolution that doesn't have to do with any country. As a company gets to be really big, it realizes that to sustain its growth, it's better to support developers who are doing third-party applications and a lot of startup companies. So we're seeing that in AI, between Google TensorFlow and Microsoft has one, Azure Labs or whatever, and Amazon Machine Learning. Yeah. I mean, everybody's developing this, so open is not necessarily free, but it's kind of industry evolution. I think that one of the things that, again, it comes back to the IP thing in China. With companies like Tencent and Baidu and Alibaba, you're seeing new MNCs, multinational corporations. And so the situation in China is, how many more of Chinese companies are really going to go this international route, and are they really going to be people to partner with for the startup companies here?
I think there will be partner because time is the most valuable asset that you don't have. So I think the transitioning of all of the merger acquisition happening lately is Chinese companies finally understand that you could accelerate with just paying money for product.
Okay. Shinka?
Hi, I have a question for Ms. Wang. Is it true that the Chinese government might try to delay the approval of certain foreign vaccines and medicines, just try to leave extra time for local pharmaceutical companies to come up with their own?
It's a good question, but I don't think I know the answer to that. I don't know, because it's really hard to decipher if with case studies, the Chinese government is really trying to delay everything, or it's something happened in the process that wasn't appropriately done. It's really hard to tell what's really happening there. But what I want to say is supporting local entrepreneurs and Chinese companies from the Chinese government standpoint, that's not wrong. They want to support their own people. They want to put resources to it. They want to encourage them to be innovative. Doesn't mean they have to suppress international enterprises. That I don't know. But the fact that they are trying to funnel more resources to support local companies, that itself is not really wrong. It's something the U.S. government would do as well.
Okay, good, thank you. Other questions? Go ahead, Don.
Yeah, based on my experience with my friends who were my classmates here, one impediment they had in becoming entrepreneurs is the opportunity cost. With economic growth comes employment opportunity. So even very bright minds, they find it very difficult to give up job opportunities to go and pursue entrepreneurship. In your opinion, have you seen this happening in China? Is that an impediment, or people are saying, okay, you know what, we're going to go take risks?
I mean, absolutely. I think culturally, 15 years ago, starting your own business is not something you'd be respected. I think what's really respected job is, becoming a professor in university, becoming a doctor. Culturally, that's what my parents' generation would support me to do. Starting a company is only trendier now because this is what's happening lately. You can provide value, and there are giants that demonstrated that. It's definitely there's issues related to not being able to give up on security and start your companies.
Can I follow through with that? Because there's a certain trendiness to places too, right?
Yeah.
So are you seeing that there's kind of a feeling that if I'm not in Shanghai, I'm not on Broadway, I'm in some regional theater?
I don't think so.
You haven't had trouble with people when you say, you know, you really ought to come to Nantong?
I think that, you know, similar to Silicon Valley, there's a lot of advantages over here. But if you look at numbers of companies that grew out of other cities in US, it's actually not true that only Silicon Valley companies have advantages or can produce results. I don't think that's true. When there's an advantage, there's a disadvantage. I think everything here is extremely expensive. If you talk about Beijing, oh my God, that's impossible to afford. There are smaller cities that got more advantages in that respect. So I don't see that you would be, you know, having disadvantage there.
George,
so much.
what kind of responses, what do you see? I mean, if you say, let's go to Xi'an, what happens?
I think definitely, you know, I think there are more role models that, you know, the young people see now in China, right? Like you can see all the 40 under 40s or all those, you know, Jack Ma and all those people, you know, they are out there, you know, kind of like helping more entrepreneurs and all that. So definitely I think when young people, when they see, hey, there are more other successful entrepreneurs, just like how Silicon Valley, right? Like when we are here, we see all the other, you know, successful entrepreneurs, and we say, hey, if they can be a successful entrepreneur, I can start my own company, right? And so when you see that, and also in China, as Xiao says, like there are many incubators also, right? So there are all those infrastructures to there to help, and also as you know, we bring many of the U.S. company there, like they want more U.S. company to be there, so they can see how the other people actually success. And then so I think definitely, you know, maybe the big cities has you know, more success
it's
because
it's
easier because they see more like the Tencent's there, you know, like in Shenzhen, and all the big companies are there. You know, they might be able to see more like the U.S. going back people compare with all the other smaller companies. I think what I see is more bigger cities. You know, they have more incubators. They have more people coming from U.S. or coming from Europe go back and to contribute to the ecosystem to help the people. Actually, unless you can have Xiao or other people who actually go into a city to build this kind of like an incubator. You know, all these things. Otherwise, if you just in a city, you will not. It's going to be hard for you to just sit there and success.
Now, one of the things that is kind of a strange mark is whether there's a direct flight from here to there.
Yeah.
And I'm impressed to find out that, you know, United has direct flights to Chengdu, United has direct flights to Hangzhou.
Right, exactly.
Yeah.
They'll have that now, yeah. So.
But I don't know, smaller cities, you get better seats. I always do that. I look forward to summer because I'm from Xi'an. We only got direct flight from here to Xi'an in the summer.
In the summertime.
So I would totally book that because I get upgrade every time.
Other questions, other comments? Okay.
For George Chao, where does Hangzhou fit into your spectrum of opportunities?
So we have helped Hangzhou government promote kind of like the competition here. Like, but we haven't. I mean, we cannot help the government with a lot of their kind of like their industry parks and all that. But we haven't done any kind of like our conference there yet. We are just in talk with the government to see how we can do more and all that.
Is there any spin-off from Alibaba and Financial, that whole cluster of companies that Jack Ma is busily building in Hangzhou?
Yeah, I think definitely. Yeah, Hangzhou is definitely big for entrepreneurship. So they bring a lot of the. Actually, I think the government take a lot of initiative. Like they have an office here directly. Like so they don't need like us to help them on that. They have government here, office here. Actually, they do a lot of the tools here in the U.S. to help companies go from here to there, directly. So
the Hangzhou government has got an office here somewhere.
Yeah, they have an office here. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah.
And I'd also say that this Asia Pacific Student Entrepreneurship Society, right, one of their strongest chapters is in Hangzhou.
Exactly,
and they're giving an Asia Summit next week,
exactly,
in fact.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh, where?
Yeah.
In Zhejiang University, in Hangzhou. Yeah.
So Hangzhou government is really connected in the U.S. themselves. Like they are here a lot, and then they do all that themselves. Yeah.
Other questions or comments? Thanks, everybody. First of all, thanks very much to George and Chao.